So, you want to become a media buyer. You have maybe heard about it being a really excellent career, how it pays well, how you get to manage ad spend for some really large brands, and those can be true, but it doesn't come without its downsides. And coming from somebody that's actually worked in the industry for almost 7 years now, I can tell you what the pros and cons are. And so we're going to talk about it all today. Of course, if you find this video useful, please drop a like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Without further ado. So you want to become a media buyer, eh? I'm Canadian, so I get to say that. All right. What we're going to be covering today. What is a media buyer? What do they do in the ad account? Why you should become a media buyer. My personal story. The 4 potential routes that you can go down as a media buyer. And to top it all off, we'll go through some personal suggestions based on my own experience. So, what is a media buyer? Simply put, the goal of a media buyer is to take money that is sitting in a pile somewhere, usually in a bank account, and use that money to buy inventory on a channel, whether that be Meta, TikTok, Google, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and make more money with that money. It's almost like you're day trading stocks, but rather than day trading stocks, you're day trading ads. And you're supposed to manipulate the budgets, manipulate the ad creative, which is the actual ad that you're uploading, and make the most amount of money for the least amount of money. And really good media buyers do that at high scale for big brands. So basically what you're going to be responsible for in terms of a bulleted list, so to speak, if you were to manage ad spend for one of these platforms. Number 1 is going to be ad account optimization. You actually have to get in there in whatever platform you're managing spend on. You have to know it, and you have to optimize every day. Number 2, data and reporting. You have to optimize, and then you have to take the data that you receive from optimizing and report it to your client, whether that's a 9-to-5 job, for multiple clients, for a brand, whatever it is. We'll get into all the specifics and the routes you can take later on. But you also have to be good at Excel or Google Sheets. And there's a ton of tutorials online. You don't need to be an expert by any means, but you do need to be able to export a CSV file from Meta or TikTok or Google, put it into a Google Sheet, and build reports and tables off of that. So you don't need to be a wizard. You can use, formulas and whatnot. Not a big deal. But you do have to have some competency there. Number 3, you have to have qualitative and quantitative. So that's personal objectivity and raw data, insights into the ad creative. So you need to be able to take a look at an ad that has run, say, here's what the data says, and here's what we should do next based on what the data says. And what that really looks like is the hook doing a good job? Is the video keeping users engaged? Is the call to action prompting a click through? What can we change about the creative so that it performs better if we were to build an iteration or for future ads, etc.? You have to have a general understanding of how business works. And I know this seems cheesy and basic, and it's meant to be, because especially if you're working in an agency, you need to understand why clients are spending money with the agency. And oftentimes it's not to get always the best result on paid social. We'll get into that. You have to have a general understanding of how other departments work. And what I mean by this is email, SMS, retention, Google ads if you're on paid social, or Facebook ads and TikTok ads if you're on Google. You have to understand how the different departments work, typically what their day-to-day looks like, and you're going to have to interact with them to some degree at some point. And then lastly, you have to work on your communication skills. You have to be able to accurately represent what is going on in the client's ad account to the client in a way that they understand, but in a way that they also trust you. Because it's one thing to tell a client, hey, performance is good. It's another thing to tell a client, this is why. And that why part is what's going to make you a great media buyer. So, why should you become a media buyer? I'm going to go through a couple pros and cons here. We'll start with the pros at the top. Pro, You make good money, on average, right around six figures for mid to high level. This is with a couple of years of experience, and typically either in a senior level or a team lead position, you're making around six figures. If you're just starting out, we'll get into the salary bands on a future slide, but it's a little bit less than that. Pro. Now, let me go back to that. So I've worked all kinds of jobs. I've worked a cashiering job at a restaurant. I've worked as a graphic designer. And it's easy to glance at, 75 or 80,000 bucks a year as a paid social manager and be like, that's not much. But if you're somebody that's listening to this video right now and you're working a dead-end job or a retail job or something like that, I know that it sounds like gold to you. So I'm not trying to understate that. You can make excellent money. It's a great career if you want to make money. Number two, you get to execute on something new almost every day. That's why I personally love marketing. I love the volatility of being able to wake up every day and solve new problems, as opposed to maybe you go to an Amazon office job or an Amazon delivery job. You're just driving a truck all day, and nothing against the people that do that job. We need them for society to function. But I could never do it because it's too monotonous, it's too tedious, and I don't get to do something new every day, which is what I personally like. It's what gets me excited. So that's a pro. Also, if you ever plan to start your own business, which I'm sure some of you watching are at some point, whether it's in the next year, 5 years, 20 years, doesn't matter. Media buying is a skill that is going to serve you in any online business venture that you ever have. So it's a great skill to learn and get good at because number one, you'll be able to save money if you ever start a business. You can do it yourself at the beginning. And number two, you're going to know how to do it effectively, which is going to produce more results for less money in the beginning. Another pro, easily be able to find remote work. In fact, I think the majority of high-level media buying positions, either on the job market or obviously with clients, it's remote. You don't have to go and go and sit in an office and commute for 2 hours every day, especially if you live in a big city. That's huge. You get, what is it, like 8 hours of your week back, plus you get to wake up a little earlier, get more sleep. It's a huge pro. And most media buying jobs are remote. You get to test ideas every day with other people's money. So if you're somebody that has constant ideas running through your head, maybe you see an ad on Instagram or TikTok, like, I wonder if we did it this way. Media buying is going to be great for you because you get to spend your clients' money to test your own ideas. Most of them are going to fail, but some of them are going to do really well, and it's fun to do that. Last pro, you're going to begin, if you do this long term, you'll understand human psychology on a level that you previously didn't. And that is going to help you not just in a professional sense, but it's also going to help you with your real life relationships because you'll understand why people purchase, what kind of emotional shortcuts businesses use to take advantage of you. And, I'm sure you could look at it from a lens of, oh, that's dark, it's a dark field to get into, but look, we're all on this spinning ball called Earth for like 70 or 80 years, and I think that you should take advantage of all of the opportunities that you have, and if you're to go down the media buying route, you will have to learn marketing psychology if you want to get good at your job, and that is inevitably going to help you with your real life relationships. All right, so those are the pros. I'm sure there's more, but those are the big ones. The cons, there's quite a few. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, I promise, even though it looks like that. Number one, if you're working a job or you have clients, doesn't matter. You are always, there are no exceptions to this. And it's kind of sad, but it's just how it works. You have to accept how things work sometimes. You will always be the number one person blamed when performance isn't doing well. Let's say a client gives you a return on ad spend goal of 1.2. And over 3 months, you've only been able to achieve 0.9. You're underperforming, right? But maybe the client's website is really ugly and there's issues with the user interface. Or maybe the client refuses to produce new ads and new creatives. Doesn't matter. The client's still going to blame you for not getting better performance. And they're going to fire you. all the time. Happens every day. In terms of a metaphor, I like to compare media buyers to the goalies in sports. They're the last line of defense. They're the closest to the money or the ball or the puck or whatever it is. And it's their job to keep things in check from getting out of hand. And when a lot of goals go in, it's always the goalie that gets blamed, even if the defense sucks, right? Even if the defense is in their own world and they're letting the attackers come through and the offense come through and do whatever they want, it's always the goalie that's blamed. Same thing with media buyers. The website could have an issue, not enough creative, the client or the business isn't listening to the team as a whole. Media buyers will always be blamed by the client for performance not being good. Next, sometimes, and this is a personal one to me because it happens a lot in the agency world, clients or even your boss sometimes will ask you to execute on a particular tactic or duty that will inevitably hurt performance on the ad account. And you have to do it sometimes because your livelihood is tied to it. If you say no, well, the client says you're disagreeable and they fire you. Well, all of a sudden you just cost the agency money coming in every month. Then you have a target put on your back. Or maybe your boss says, hey, do this in the ad account. And you are very much, against it, and you know with data that it doesn't work. Do it anyway, because you're going to have to. If you don't, then your boss is going to look at you and say, this guy is not a team player, this guy isn't this, that. And ultimately it's hurting you more than it would hurt the client for you to execute on it. So sometimes you just have to do things that you don't agree with, or, this is with any job really, but, sometimes it's going to cost the clients tens of thousands or hundred thousands of dollars if you execute, and you just have to do it. Next up, media buying as a whole is a pretty difficult skill to truly master. I know the saying 12,000 hours to be an expert. That's not it for media buying, because it's not like you just learn media buying and that's it. That's the skill, right? It's not like you learn sales and then you become good at sales. Media buying is multiple different skills all meshed into one. And you have to individually give love, effort, and attention to each one. I'll give you a couple examples. Obviously, the data analysis component of doing tactical media buying each day. Creative and being able to blend the worlds of brand and performance marketing. Copywriting, being able to write words that sell. Conversion rate optimization, being able to take a look at a landing page and determining what's an issue, why people aren't converting. And just general understanding of performance marketing and how all of the different channels and whatnot intersect. That's a separate skill on its own. And you have to mesh all of these together to be a really good media buyer, and it takes time, it takes a lot of money. Another con, you're on the clock all the time, 24/7. Even if you're working a 9-to-5 job, you are the last line of defense. Going back to the first con that I mentioned, you're like the goalie of the team. And if something goes wrong, if the ad account goes down, if budgets go haywire, if something happens, you are the one that has to get in the ad account and fix it. Regardless of the time of day, regardless of what day it is, even on a day like Christmas, if something happens, maybe your boss will say, hey, don't worry about it until you get back. Or, hey, the client says, hey, don't worry about it till tomorrow. Most of the time that's not the case, but sometimes it will be. You're still going to be expected to come on and execute, because if you don't, you're going to be looked at as unreliable, and that's going to make it very easy for you to be replaced. So in one sense, you could look on and say, okay, maybe you have Christmas off. In another sense, you really don't, because if something happens, then, you need to be able to set yourself up for success and apart from the pack. And that's just the reality, again, cold hard truth. Another con, it's very difficult to balance, and this kind of ties in with this one right here. It's difficult to balance what's best for your client versus what's most safe to keep your paycheck rolling in every month. A good example, right? Your boss wants you to do something in the ad account that you don't believe in, that you know is going to hurt performance long run. You have to execute on it, because if you don't, there's a chance that your paycheck goes away because your boss thinks you're not a team player, right? So it's difficult to balance that morality and the ethical side of being a media buyer when you don't have proper input on what's actually going on your day-to-day activities. Lastly, on the pros list, it's actually quite easy to make mistakes that can be costly. And we're talking about simple stuff like UTM parameters not being put on ads, like spelling mistakes in ad copy that lower the brand reputation, putting an extra zero at the end of a budget that spends $10,000 a day instead of $1,000, or deleting a campaign or an ad that you didn't mean to and removing all the data associated. Very easy to make these mistakes. I've made them in the past, not necessarily all the ones I mentioned, but some. And you have to double check your work. There are no exceptions. I don't care if you're a brand new media buyer or you're a seasoned buyer with 10 years of experience. You need to go in after you've set something up and do a cross-reference and a cross-check to make sure that there's no issues, which quite honestly is tedious, but it is mandatory and you must do it. So those are the pros and cons. Now let's go through my timeline. What prompted me to become a media buyer? Well, in 2017, I started with dropshipping. I saw, and I know this is super cheesy, I say this all the time, but I saw a YouTube video on my feed. It's like, how do I afford a Lamborghini? It was like the new Aventador SV or something that came out. I'm a big car guy. And I looked at the video and a guy's like, oh, I do dropshipping online. And that's the first time I ever heard about it. Fast forward, 2018. I had done dropshipping a little bit, but I landed my first job making $2,000 a month. It was a contract position, remote, as an ad creatives manager at a digital agency that managed spend for direct-to-consumer e-commerce businesses. And I was making $2,000 a month. I was 18, 19 at the time, and that's about as much as you would be making if you, probably even a little bit more actually, if you were to work like a retail job at Taco Bell, at the mall somewhere, as a cashier, whatever it was. That's a little bit more than you would be making every month. And I only had to work about 20 hours a week, which was great. Fast forward to 2021, I continue to building my skill set, and I get into media buying during this time as well, like full time. And in 2021, I landed my first high level job that was paying me $90,000 a year. And that was a big step forward because all of a sudden I went from not making a whole lot of money and not being able to live in the adult world to making significantly more than my peer group and really setting me up for success in the future. I was 20 at the time, I believe. 21? No, I was 21 in 2021. Yeah, I was 2021 when I got the first gig. And it was a life-changing amount of money for me. I was able to go from renting, barely making payments from a one-bedroom apartment with a roommate, all the way up to being able to afford renting a house by myself if I wanted to. I didn't, of course, because, why would you do that if you're a young guy? But separate topic. I was able to live a regular life for the first time, and it was great. Fast forward to 2024, into the multiple six-figure range. I've graduated now to consulting and helping other businesses, maybe like yourself, if you're listening to this video. I'm helping them scale their ad accounts. And it took me almost 3 years of full-time work, part-time and full-time mixed in between. But it took me around 3 years to break 6 figures. So I don't want you to come into this and think, hey, media buying is a great way to make 6 figures fast, because it's not. You have to spend time learning. You have to spend time in a crappy job because everybody starts somewhere. And then you have to level up and you have to get your first high-level job. And that's going to take a couple years at least, okay? So how much do they get paid? Because I know that's everybody's question that they're wondering right now. Entry level, and again, this is just my experience. Depending on when you watch this video, it might be different. Entry level is going to be around $45,000 to $60,000 a year. Mid-level, anywhere from $55,000 to $70,000. And senior level or team lead level, $70,000 to $130,000. I've seen a few that go above $130,000 if you're like a director level, but those are very, very, very rare positions to find. Those go up to like maybe $180,000 or something. And you're gonna have like 7 years of experience, millions of ad spend to get there anyway. So, and of course, caveat: if you live in a particular location like San Francisco, New York. Salaries will go up, especially if you're working in person, because especially in big cities, there are going to be many roles available that aren't remote, that you have to go into an office. So if you want to do that, by all means, you probably will get paid a little bit more than the nationwide range for remote work, but it is a trade-off. You have to commute every day, right? You have to work in an office. And last note here on how much they get paid. Look, like any field, you're going to be capped at a certain point. After 4 or 5 years in, you're in a senior level role. You don't really have much more maneuverability unless you take a step forward, which is going to be like a paid media director role or maybe a head of paid social, but those again are very rare to get. And then, eventually CMO. You're going to have to get to that really high level if you want to make multiple 6 figures a year from a W-2 job. If you're just taking, client work here and there as contracts, cool. You can very easily break multiple 6 figures doing that. But I always recommend that you start off in a W-2 position so you can learn how business works fundamentally, learn how the different departments act, and ultimately just soak up as much information as possible so you can be successful later. Paying your dues, so to speak. All right, Jory, how do I learn these skills? What's my path that I need to take in order to become a successful media buyer? If you're starting from nothing, like you know absolutely nothing about running Facebook ads, first of all, check out my YouTube channel because I have a ton of content. But second, the Meta Blueprint exams. I know people don't like to recommend these. I don't know why. I really don't, because they're extremely valuable. And let me take a sip of my water real quick. Fiji is the best water, by the way. There's no comparison. Some people will say Evian, Zephyr Hills, whatever. Fiji is the best. So Meta Blueprint has these exams, right? And you take these exams. I think you have to pay a couple $100 for each of them. And what you can do is you pass these exams, and they'll teach you the fundamentals of how to run ads. And you can put these certifications that they give you on your resume. And especially if you're starting out, like you've never had a media buying role ever, this will be the difference between you getting interviews and not, because you don't have any real experience. You're probably going to have to start off making a couple grand a month in a really crappy position with a really crappy ad account, and then you can move on to a real, adult style role. And these certifications will help you along the way. After you have the certifications, I would recommend that you apply to entry-level positions in your area, or if you're into remote work, you can do that as well. But regardless of what you do not apply for internships, because internships are a complete waste of your time unless you're working in a Fortune 100 company or something. If you do that for long enough, you apply to a couple hundred jobs, you will get an offer eventually. Even if it takes 6 months and you have to work a retail job or you have to do this or that for a certain amount of time, you eventually will get an offer. It's inevitable if you do it every day. You look online, you see, here's the roles that I have available. I apply to them with my best effort, etc. You will eventually get an offer. And as a note, I do offer one-to-one help. If you want me to take a look at your situation and give you the advice that you need personally to move forward with media buying, we can work together. Whether that means you want to get a job, whether that means you need help with your business and marketing with your business, etc. Book a call with me, calendly.com/Lord of Ads. We have 15, 30 hour-long, day-long sessions available, so you get to choose what best fits your time. Meta Blueprint, we won't spend too much on this slide, but here's the order of what I recommend in terms of which certifications you could get. And each of these have a fee. You need to spend time studying so that you get good and you pass. And, use practice tests. Take a look at YouTube. My whole channel has all of the things that you'll need to pass these tests. The 4 potential routes that you can go down as a media buyer. Number 1, brand side employee. This is where you work one-to-one intimately as an employee or a contractor with a brand or a business. And you are the one guy that's managing ad spend on paid social, on Google, on whatever it is. Typically, you're going to have to report to a director of marketing, a head of growth, or something, whatever it is. You'll typically have one person that you'll need to report to, but you'll be an individual contributor, and you typically will get paid quite well. Agency side. You don't have to worry about getting new clients while working in an agency. In fact, you'll actually typically be working with anywhere from 6 to 12 clients on a basis. So you get a ton of experience, first of all, both with client communication, data and reporting, and actual media buying, and creative too, to be fair. But it is quite volatile, and we'll get into that. Freelance. This is where you have to do all the lead generation yourself. You have to be the one to go out and pitch yourself to businesses. But you also get full control over the relationship that you have with the business and how much money you make. That's where you're actually running ads as well, by the way. Consultant is a little bit different. That's what I'm doing right now, where you're not directly managing any ad spend anymore. And this is, guys, this is like 3, 4, 5 years down the road minimum. So don't think that you can do this right away, because you can't. You're not actually managing spend, but you are consulting with businesses and you're giving them advice on what to do. And this has pretty high earning potential, but it is also extremely volatile, just like agency side or freelance work. Let's talk a little bit about brand side first. So this is, in my personal opinion, the best route that you can take. Sorry, there's a garbage truck outside and it's just being really obnoxious right now. This is the best route that you can take if you want good compensation, good work-life balance, and mobility to move into a better position later on. And another key component, those who are working brand side, the businesses are typically hiring experts for every department. So that's going to be Google, email, Meta, paid social, whatever it is, creative director, etc. You'll be an individual contributor, and you'll only really be responsible for one channel. However, brand side stuff, you need to have a little bit more experience typically. This isn't going to be a role that you're going to get after getting your Meta certification. You need multiple years of experience and a proven track record with case studies to get hired, because you are the only person on the team that can run the ads. So you have to be competent. They're also not as common as agency roles because of that. So there are exceptions, of course, but that's typically what a brand side employee looks like. It's my personal favorite if you want to go down the W-2 route. Agency side. Like I said in the previous, or 2 slides ago, agencies are a great place to learn early on in your career, but there are a lot of cons with agency life. They're pretty high stress because you basically have like 6 to 12 different mini bosses all the time. They don't pay very well unless you're a team lead, and even then, it's not that great. And you have pretty poor work-life balance because you're always going to be expected to be that last line of defense, that goalkeeper for all of your accounts. It's not like you have one ad account that you have to manage. Now you have 6 to 12 with all different business goals and objectives that you have to keep in the back of your mind, even when you're not working. And, going back to the cons of being a media buyer in general, if you're working as a media buyer in an agency and a client fires the agency while you're on that account, it does not matter how you were doing your job, even if you're doing the best you could. If a client fires your agency while you're on that account, management will take note. And if that happens multiple times in a row, even if it's not your fault, you will be fired. Just how it is. It's unfortunate. There's not a lot of room for personal interpretation, but you will be let go. Unfortunate if that happens. Additionally, the majority of agencies, if you are a good media buyer, because I'm not teaching you how to be mediocre here. I'm trying to teach you to be the best you can be. Even if you do a great job on all of your accounts, right? Typically, they will not give you any additional compensation for higher responsibility. The more work you do, the more work you get. That's typically how corporate America works anyway, but even more so in the agency world. And oftentimes, the best move to make for the client will become the opposite of what your boss wants to do, or the opposite of even what the client wants you to do. Which means that if you want to keep your job and you want to keep your paycheck and your livelihood and your house and your kids fed, you have to say yes. You have to be a yes man because your livelihood depends on it. Which inevitably is why a lot of brands and businesses these days don't like agencies, because it causes a lack of trust and a lot of instability in the ad account, because you almost always have a media buyer, even if they're competent, they're not quite able to execute the way that would be best for the business. A little bit of an additional slide here, just because I have so much personal experience working in the agency world. Again, this is all my personal opinion here, because like you could totally have a completely different outlook. You could have different friends that tell you different information. This is just what I have learned over working maybe 3 or 4 years in the agency space. Look, retaining a full-time job in the agency world is actually a lot more difficult than you think. I think typical tenure is less than 2 years. Doesn't matter your position or what your seniority level is. The only way you can really become unfireable or someone that can just never truly let go is indispensable value. You need to do something that other media buyers can't. You need to bring value in a way that other media buyers can't. And there's a couple ways you can do this. Number one, you need to have the best relationship. Or actually, let me do it in order because I put it in order. So let's just do it in order. Number one, you have to have best performance of anybody at your agency. Very, very difficult to do. It doesn't matter how competent you are at media buying. Your performance in your ad accounts needs to be better than all of the other buyers at your agency. It is skill-based to some degree. It's like poker almost. Like you're dealt a hand. You're dealt multiple hands, actually. Like think of every client ad account that you're given in an agency as a hand of poker. The flop, the turn, the river comes, and that's how you have to play your hand. Right? If you have pocket aces for every client account that you're assigned, then it's very easy to have the best performance. If you have deuce 7 on every client account, then even if you're the best media buyer in the world, you're not going to win the majority of your pots. So, there is an essence of skill, being able to play the hand that you were dealt, but it's also an essence of luck. So there's that. Number 2, having the best client relationships out of anybody at your agency. The clients that you work with, even if performance isn't great, you make the best effort you can to build a relationship and to build rapport with your clients. And then lastly, you could be the team member internally that everybody loves, the ultimate representation of what culture is at your company. You're always available to work whatever hours needed. You have constant ideas. You're willing to help other people do their job. Basically, you have to work more than everybody else. Those are the 3 ways that you can become indispensable at an agency. Day-to-day, what the day-to-day life looks like. We kind of covered this already in what a media buyer does, but I'll go through the bullet list here. Reporting results, that's taking data from the platform and sharing it with the client and internally. Creating new ads, uploading new ads to the ad account, dealing with iterations, submitting briefs. Meeting with the clients and doing reporting on a weekly or bi-weekly basis typically. Meeting with internal team members to discuss strategy. Diagnosing problems and fires because they will come up. And then optimizing based off of that. And then lastly, coming up with ideas. This is this is part of being indispensable to some degree, but not quite as powerful as the list that I gave. Coming up with ad creative, ad account, and optimization ideas for web. That's what your day-to-day is going to look like typically. How to deal with clients. I told you we were going to cover everything there is to know. I know we've been recording for over half an hour, so I hope you're enjoying this video. If you do, and if you are, please drop a like rating down below. It really does help out with the YouTube algorithm. It helps other people see this video. Dealing with clients. Take a little bit more Fiji here first. Look, most clients are going to be pretty incompetent. And it's just the truth. It is what it is. Most clients don't really know the ins and outs of media buying like you will. And, that's evident in the fact that they always blame you when performance isn't good. So, you have to learn how to navigate these relationships. Regardless of the spend level. If they're spending $5,000 a month, they're spending $25, $250, doesn't matter. You will always deal with clients to some degree that are going to be incompetent, that don't quite understand, that are ignorant, especially if they're an early stage. Secondly, you have to learn how to navigate the relationships. You need to be a great communicator. You need to smile. You need to have engagement with your voice. You can't be, cam off, stone cold, monotone. Today, performance was like this, that, and that. You have to be engaged with the client. You have to sit there and you have to talk about ads like you give a damn. Because if you don't, they'll recognize that and they will leave. Clients will always leave an agency or even if you're a freelancer, they'll leave if you don't have a good relationship, despite what performance is. Lastly, if you have a suggestion, just bring the data. No exceptions. If you have a suggestion, bring data along with it, because clients will never listen to you. Well, I'll rephrase. Clients will rarely listen to your advice unless you show them indisputable evidence that what you're suggesting will make them money. They hire an agency for advice on how to grow their business, and they don't listen to it most of the time. Yeah, I know it's stupid, but that's how it works, okay? And if I could leave you with one piece of advice for dealing with clients, it's to make the relationship about you and them, not just about money and being a transactional relationship. Because at the end of the day, your client is a human being, and they have emotions and they have feelings. And even in the world of data and media buying, if you can make a relationship personal, that will always add more value than if you didn't. Okay. So, you know what a media buyer is, what a media buyer does, what the pros and cons are, what the different roles are. How do you actually apply for your first job? Okay, let's go through a specific example. Let's say you're making $11 an hour working at McDonald's right now, and you want to land an entry-level position making $40,000 or $60,000 a year. Sounds like a ton of money, I know. The first thing you need to do is create a game plan, because nothing good happens without a plan. You ask a guy who has a six-pack abs, right? Dude, how did you get a six-pack? They look great. Oh, I went to the gym, They have a plan. It's always the case. They always have a plan. They said, no, I went to the gym for 3 hours. I was on protein. I did this and that. I had a schedule. It sucked. Some days I didn't want to go. I still did it. You ask a guy who got rich. Maybe you go on a yacht in Miami, right? You go to a yacht party, and there's a guy dressed really well. You say, hey, nice watch. What do you do? He's like, I own a business. And you're like, oh, how did you do that? How'd you become wealthy? Is he gonna sit there and just say, well, I just happened to make a lot of money, No, he has a plan. He built a business. He had 5 years doing this, 10 years doing that, right? He took the time to either mentally or he wrote it down or whatever he did something consistently for a long period of time. He stuck to the plan, and the outcome was the outcome that he wanted. Same thing applies if you're trying to become a media buyer. And I know those were extreme examples, but seriously, be specific. What do you want to do every day? Do you want to manage ads? Do you want to work with clients? Do you want to be brand side? Do you want to be in an agency? Do you want to be a freelancer? Do you want to be an entry level, mid level, or a senior manager kind of level, right? Do you want to manage other people? These are all questions you have to ask yourself before you get your first job, because it will inform you on your path and your plan so that the steps that you take move you closer towards that goal, okay? Make it realistic. If you're applying to jobs, you need to send a lot of applications. You don't have a network that you can just call up and say, hey, bud, I need a job at your agency. You don't have that. It took me, I think, gosh, how long did it take me to get my first role? I got fired from it within a month because I was like 19. I think it took me like 6 months to get my first offer after sending hundreds and hundreds of applications. And I just didn't give up. I just, was like, I don't want to do what I'm doing right now. I don't care what it takes. If I do this for my whole life, I'm going to get an offer somehow, right? And I did. And, it's going to feel like you're getting rejected all the time. Companies will give you a screening interview and say, hey, we'll follow up with you in the next couple days or the next week. Then you never hear back from them. You will go in person to an interview, meet with the CEO, and he'll tell you, dude, you look like a great fit. I feel like this is almost set in stone. I'll give you a call back. They never do. They never do. That's just what it is. That's the cold hard truth, okay? Most of the time when a company says they're going to give you a call back, they will ghost you. Accept it. Don't take it personal. It's part of the game, okay? You only need to get one offer. It is literally like winning the lottery, actually. You only need to land one job to have a job. And I know that sounds stupid, but it's true. So even if it takes 300 applications over 6 months, screw it. You got the job, who cares? Now you have a job on your resume, which is going to make it easier to get the next job, and then the next job. So, stick at it, build a plan, stick at it, and results will come. Okay? Bonus slide. How to avoid the bad jobs, because there's a lot of them. Look, not every position that you have available to you is going to be the best, okay? There's going to be issues. There's going to be red flags. Let's talk about them. Number one, if compensation is below 50K, typically that's a very clear indicator that the company is either struggling financially or doesn't value its employees. And those two things, if you do take the role, work there for a year and then move, because you don't want to be making 50 grand. You're worth more than that. Number two, they want you to do multiple things without paying for multiple things. Multiple hats is the corporate term, but, same thing. Maybe they say, hey, we're looking for somebody to run Facebook ads for us. And then you join the company, and then 3 weeks later, they're like, hey, here, run Google ads for us. Hey, here, do conversion rate optimization for us. Again, if you have the job, by all means do it, and then get the experience and then leave. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to consolidate all of the roles of digital marketing into one role and pay you for one salary, which is a very clear indicator that they do not value their employees. Number three, or their business, to be honest, because one person can't do all of those things at an exceptional level. Number three, they're slow in communication. Do they respond to emails quickly? Do they ghost you? Do they fail to show up to the interview? That's happened to me a few times. Do they reschedule when it's 5 minutes away? Don't expect a company to respect your time when you work for them if they don't respect your time in the interview process. Okay? And then the fourth one, the last one's kind of my personal favorite here. If the job description mentions we're a family, fast-paced work environment, or work hard, play hard, it's all corporate bullshit, okay? It's what bad managers put on their job description to make it seem like the environment and the culture is a great place to be, but reality is they're going to overwork you and underpay you, and typically they'll have no loyalty with their employees. So, look, if a company has one of these red flags, it's probably not a big deal. If they have 2, 3, or more, I probably wouldn't accept their offer, if I'm being honest. So yeah, that's the bonus on avoiding bad jobs. And again, I know if you're making 20 grand a year right now and you get an offer for 52,000 or 48,000, and they're slow in communication, they want you to run everything, and they have this in the job description, I understand that you're probably still going to take the job. I'm just letting you know now, expect the worst. Maybe don't quit your retail job. Maybe move to midnight hours or something. Graveyard shift. Okay, so that was agency stuff and brand stuff. Let's move into freelance. So typically, if you want to be a freelancer, that's cool. It oftentimes requires more time and money to start because you don't have a list of clients that are willing to pay you, right? And lead generation becomes a pretty big thing that you need to master. If you want to be a freelancer, there's a couple of websites if you're a beginner that are pretty good. Upwork, Fiverr, and Freelancer.com are all great. Although typically you have to start off offering your services for a very cheap price because you need reviews on your gig in order to get more clients. And there's always a ceiling because you're competing with people in third world countries that are also running media buying. And typically as well, the businesses that go on Upwork or Fiverr or Freelancer are not businesses that have a lot of money. They're businesses that are trying to penny pinch and get the cheapest possible deal. And that's a race to the bottom where you don't want to be. Now, my personal method of finding clients And, again, I know this requires money, so you're probably going to have to save up if you want to do this, or work a full-time job if you want to do this. But run ads directly on Meta and TikTok. Build a landing page, VSL, whatever it is, book a call link, and run ads and say, hey, do whatever you want to do with the ad. Maybe a separate video, we can talk about that. But run ads yourself. And, that's how you're going to get the higher ticket clients. Now, if you want to be a consultant, which is what I'm doing right now, you don't directly manage the ad spend, but you are still responsible to bring all the strategy and knowledge. And the eventual goal of a consultant is actually to get fired, because that means that the client has all of the systems and all the tools that they need to be successful without you being there, because you've taught them everything they need to know. You often earn the most for the least amount of work, but it's actually quite difficult to keep a client long term. Typically anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and then they're gone because they've used you for what they need, and that's it. I know we covered a lot today. If you want access to this deck that we just walked through, and many more, all of the videos on our YouTube channel that have decks like this that walk you through step by step, they're available in the Roundtable, which is my paid ads community. But not only do you get access to a repository of best practices and all these informative decks, you also get access to me personally with one-to-one messaging 24/7. So if you have any questions about paid ads, you can ask me directly. You'll also be able to discover new ways to generate ad concepts that have successfully scaled, because I have a swipe file that you can pull from. You'll be able to keep up to date with industry trends and best practices and features, because that's a full-time job in and of itself. And I'm the one that's on Twitter and forums all day learning about media buying, so you don't have to. And then lastly, of course, if you want to connect with other business owners, maybe it's a great place to find a job, even if you have some e-commerce brands in there. You'll be able to meet like-minded people, pitch yourself if you want to, and ultimately become the best media buyer you can be. That's the Roundtable, roundtable.lordofads.co. Check the description down below. And if you want to book one-to-one time with me instead, you can do that at calendly.com/lordofads. We have 15, 30, hour-long and day-long sessions. We can talk about anything. It is your time. So if you have questions about how to become a media buyer, if you have questions about how to run an ad account, how to deal with clients, I can help you with that. Come prepared with questions to get the max value. If you want to run a bundle deal, send me an email. And of course, all calls are recorded and sent afterwards, so you have that reference in case you ever want to revisit. Okay, I know that was a lot, guys. I wish you all the best of luck in your career journey and media buying journey, wherever it takes you. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like rating and drop a comment down below. Until next time, take care.